Now, Lincoln tried in his approach to Sumter to separate reinforcement of these troops, a military act, from provisions, a humanitarian act, and he wanted to stress the latter. He notified finally Southern officials. He never referred to them as Confederate governments. He just notified South Carolina, he said, that he was going to send food and provisions to hungry soldiers. Now, who could be against that? He's going to feed some people. He called it a mission of humanity, bringing food to hungry men, quote unquote. But the Confederate leadership took this as a direct challenge, and Lincoln did indeed send a ship down the coast about the 8th or 9th of 6th or 7th of April, 1861, and the prolonged suspense finally came to an end. That one ship was provisioned with food. Now, the truth is there were some arms and some weapons in the hold as well. In the end, it isn't going to matter a lot. The Confederate cabinet met under Jefferson Davis on the 9th of April, and they made a decision that if Lincoln tried to sail that ship into Charleston Harbor, they would fire on it. On the 11th of April, Major Anderson in the fort was given a chance to surrender by the authorities in Charleston. He refused, and at 4:30 in the morning in the dark of night, April 12th, 1861, about 100 cannon from all around Charleston Harbor, 100 federal cannons originally, now seized by the Confederate States of America, opened up and bombarded Fort Sumter for 35 hours. Anderson's men hid underground in dugouts. They'd been well prepared for this, and none of them died in the bombardment of thousands of shells lobbed into the fort.
By this time, reports appear that Southern militia are drilling in large numbers in preparation to seize Fort Pickens off Pensacola. Also on April 8th, in Washington, President Lincoln wires Governor Pickens of South Carolina, informing him that he was going to send supply and relief to Fort Sumter. On April 10th, ships at New York City steamed toward Fort Sumter. They carry supplies for Fort Sumter's garrison. The United States shows it is going to support Fort Sumter, not abandon it. Also on April 10th, the Confederate government in Montgomery, Alabama, wires Beauregard at Charleston, ordering him to deliver an ultimatum to Anderson at Fort Sumter. We will zoom into Charleston. April 11th, General Beauregard sends his aides to Major Anderson's garrison at Fort Sumter. Beauregard's message states, "I am ordered by the government of the Confederate States to demand the evacuation of Fort Sumter." At the fort, Major Anderson sends an answer back to General Beauregard on that same day. Anderson states, "I have the honor to acknowledge the receipt of your communication demanding the evacuation of this fort, and to say, in reply thereto, that it is a demand with which I regret that my sense of honor and of my obligations to my government prevent my compliance." Night falls on April 11th. In the wee morning hours of April 12th, Beauregard's aides send another message to Major Anderson at Fort Sumter. The message reads, "Sir, by authority of Brigadier General Beauregard, commanding the Provisional Forces of the Confederate States, we have the honor to notify you that he will open the fire of his batteries on Fort Sumter in 1 hour from this time." The steamship Baltic, one of the relief ships from New York, has arrived off Charleston with supplies. Other ships from the relief effort have arrived as well. At 4:30 a.m., rebel cannons from Fort Johnson, Cummings Point, and Fort Moultrie open fire. Fort Sumter is now under artillery fire. The defenders fire back. The Baltic attempts to carry supplies to Fort Sumter. However, the waters are rough and the ship does not have a gunboat available for cover. The ships cannot provide supply to the fort. daylight. The cannons sound all through the day.
"150 years ago today, this man stood on the quarterdeck of the steam frigate USS Powhatan as it steamed southward along the coast of New Jersey en route to Pensacola, Florida, where he planned to reinforce the small garrison at Fort Pickens. This is Lieutenant David Dixon Porter, and his authority to command the Powhatan was somewhat questionable, since just hours before he had received a telegram from Secretary of State William Henry Seward ordering him to give up the Powhatan and turn the ship over to Captain Samuel Mercer. Instead of obeying, Porter folded up the orders and put them in his pocket. The fact that the Powhatan was at sea in the first place and headed for Florida and not South Carolina was also the result of jumbled, misunderstood, or in this case, ignored orders, because as far as Secretary of the Navy Gideon Welles was concerned, that ship was supposed to be headed for Charleston, South Carolina, to be part of an expedition to reinforce the beleaguered Fort Sumter. In fact, though this moment marked the greatest crisis in the history of the Republic, of all the people involved in the decision-making chain of command that day, from the President to his cabinet down to Porter himself, no one seemed to know what the hell was going on.